Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Rene. I'm a former public school teacher turned homeschool mom of 2 boys. And in today's video, I want to talk to you all about the reading program, All About Reading. Now in today's video, we're going to talk about what is All About Reading, what does a typical lesson look like. We're going to talk about the things that I love about the program, the things that I don't love about the program, and also some of my best tips and supplementary materials to use with the program. So it's going to be a bit of a long video, so settle in and let's get started. So All About Reading. Let's first talk about kind of what this program is. So this is a phonics-based, science-backed reading program. It's multi-sensory, so that means it uses all of your different senses. It's really good for lots of different types of learners. And it is focused just on reading. So that's where the primary focus is teaching your kid how to read. There are 5 levels going from pre-reading, where the kids learn just like their letter sounds and rhyming and stuff like that, all the way up to level 4. By the time your child finishes level 4 of this program, they should be able to phonetically read anything. As I said, it is phonics based, so it's going to be focusing on teaching your kid how to sound out words, teaching them the different English language rules of what letter combinations make what sounds. Which I think is a very good way of teaching reading. I think that's the best way to teach reading, and it's one of the reasons why we chose this program. So let's talk about some of the different components of this program. So I have with me in this video level 1, which we are currently using. We're over halfway done with it, and so I thought it would be a good time to make this video and kind of talk about everything while it's fresh in my brain. So here's the teacher manual. It is quite thick. This thing is chocked full of stuff. I highly recommend reading it cover to cover. The very beginning teaches you kind of all about the program and how to use it and when your kid is ready for it. And then even at the end, they have all kinds of game ideas, what to do if your kid's struggling with the program. It definitely does not leave you as the parent high and dry. There's lots of support here in this book. Along with this teacher book, they also have an activity guide for the student. This program does not have any writing at all, so the activity guide is not worksheets. Instead, it is games, fluency sheets, different activities that go along with your reading, just all kinds of different fun stuff. We really enjoyed a lot of the activities that are in here, and I really think that there was a lot of heart put into this program when it was made. Along with that, you do also have some word cards. So it comes with this box to hold all your word cards. So you can see there's the word cards there. So we've got cards with just like letter sounds and letter combinations like this. And then we also have cards that have just words to actually read for the student. And this box will hold all 4 levels of cards. Right now, this is just the level 1 cards in here. But I like that you don't have to buy a new box for each level. And then we also have the readers. These readers are very high quality. They are hardback. They're the size of real books. They have beautiful, pictures and illustrations in them. You can see here, the first book starts off pretty simple with just, a few small sentences. But by the time you get to the last book in level 1, you can see that there's quite a bit more on each page. All right, and this will just be for level 1 of the program. Obviously, as you get into the higher levels, the stories will get longer and more complicated. And then you also have some magnetic tiles that come with the program as well that you can use to build words and do different activities within the program. Or if you prefer, instead of having physical tiles, they also have an app that you can use through their program. So those are the different components that come with the program. You can purchase all the components separately, so if you find that some of the components other places, or you just need to buy like one extra thing for one student, you can purchase everything separately as needed. All right, so those are the different components of the program. So the way this program works, it's meant to be done 20 minutes a day. So it's very short, doesn't take up like a big chunk of your day or anything like that. A lot of people will just set a timer for 20 minutes, and when they're done, they're done. So it's not necessarily like a lesson per day situation. In fact, it very much isn't. There's some lessons that are very long that have taken us, more than a week to complete. So it's definitely not something that you're going to be checking off a lesson per day necessarily. There may be some lessons that are shorter depending on your child. You may be able to finish one a day, but I would say in general, most kids spend several days on a lesson. So what we personally did was we split our lesson up into different days. So I would, as the parent, look ahead and I would split up our lesson like this is what we're doing day 1, this is what we're doing day 2. So that way, instead of just setting a timer and kind of just ending in a random in the middle of a lesson, I kind of set specific activities to do each day. That's just the way I preferred to do it. So let me kind of go over what a lesson in this program would look like. So there's kind of 2 different kinds of lessons here. I'm trying to like flip through a beginning one here. So there's teaching lessons where they're teaching your kids something new. So like this would be an example of one. So they're teaching your kids these letters in this one. And it'll tell you as the parent, it'll give you kind of the objective, what you need for the lesson. So you'll be able to prepare ahead of time. Like it'll tell you, you're gonna need the word cards, from your word card box, 33 to 35. And you're gonna need your activity pages, 45 to 54. So I think a lot of people are turned off by this program due to how many components it has and how much prep it seems like. And for me as a working homeschool parent, I can totally see that. In fact, I had a lot of the same fears and thoughts. But I can tell you after doing this for a year, you can get really good at this. It takes me about 15 minutes on the weekend to prep for the whole week. And sometimes I'll even prep for 2 weeks depending on what's going on. So it really does not take that long. It just takes 10, 15 minutes time set aside to just, have it prepped and done. So anyway, so this is a lesson where they would be teaching your kids something new. A teacher guide is scripted, so that means it'll tell you, the teacher, exactly what to say. This was something that I loved because I've never taught a kid to read. I'm a certified teacher, but I taught middle school, so I never taught a kid to read. They knew how to read by the time they got to me, hopefully. So this was really helpful for me to know exactly what to say, what to do. It really held your hand as the parent. The teacher guide is also very colorful. You can see it has like pictures to show you exactly like what's going to be on the table, what you're going to be using, what you're going to be pointing to. Usually the lesson has some sort of activity with the word cards or the letter cards. It'll have an activity with your magnet tiles here, or you'll use the app. It'll have some sort of activity from the activity book. So like in this one, you're making a little flip chart guide. And then it'll have some practice for you to do, and then a fluency word sheet also from your activity guide. So that would be an example of like one lesson. And then the other kinds of lessons you have are more like reading lessons. So this is when you kind of put it all together and actually read a story. So this would be kind of what a story one would be. Sometimes they read 1 story, sometimes they read 2. Usually the story ones will start off again with some review with your word cards. And then there's usually some sort of like warm-up activity they do before they read the book, and then they'll read the story. One cool thing about this program is it does have some built-in reading comprehension. So it'll tell you, like, as the parent, after page 49, ask your student to look at the illustration and ask them, this question. So it'll tell them to do different things. I also love that this program comes with warm-up sheets for the books. So basically they'll read this little warm-up sheet that'll have the words for the book in there, so they can kind of practice with those words before they go into reading the story. So it's not just like a cold read, like they just read the words, so the story's a little easier for them to read then. So it kind of warms them up a little bit, boosts their confidence level a little bit, so they enjoy the reading part a little bit more. And then when you finish a lesson, you'll mark it off on this little star sheet that's included as well. So that's kind of what a typical lesson looks like. There's some, obvious exceptions here and there, but for the most part, that's what it'll be. You'll have some lessons where the kids are learning a new concept, and you'll practice it in different ways, and then you'll have another lesson where they'll actually read it in a story. And that's just kind of how the program is set up in general and how you kind of use the different components with it. So now that we've talked about what this program is, let me kind of talk about what I love about the program. So what drew us to this program, besides just, being phonics-based and short lessons and multisensory, and also just having a great reputation, all those things were definitely factors. One other big thing that I loved about this program was that it doesn't have any writing. My son really struggles with handwriting, and I didn't want his writing ability to hold back his reading. And so I loved that with this program, even if your kid's not even writing yet, they can do this whole program. So I think that was really cool that they kind of keep those skills separate, so that kids aren't held back by one or the other. So I really appreciate that about this program. One thing that I wish I had known is, even though this is a one and done program, so you go up to level 4 and you're officially done with reading, your kid can phonetically read anything, you don't necessarily do a level per year. Sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's slower. a lot of times with this first level, level one, it takes kids longer than a year to get through this one, and I've heard some of the other levels can be a little faster. Obviously that depends on the kid, but that's just something I wish I had known, because I think as a parent in my brain, I was thinking, level one for 1 year. And that might be for some kids, but for us, that was not the case. It took us longer. It's taking us longer than a year to get through level one. So that's just something to be aware of. I do have kind of a list here of some of the things I wanted to go over, so I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. Another thing I loved about this program is it's kind of a no gaps program. So it goes over, every single rule in the English language, all of the rule breakers, it's very comprehensive. It goes over, so your kids should never encounter a word after this program that they're not able to read or decode or figure out, which is really, really cool. Another thing I loved was how much support there is for this program. So there is their online website, which has a blog, and there is so much support. I mean, any kind of problem your kid could be having with this program, there is an article on there about it. And there are free printable activities to help you with the problem. I mean, there's so much free stuff online for this program. Honestly, even if you aren't using this program, I highly recommend checking out that website. There's just so much stuff there. They also have an online Facebook group. It's an official Facebook group. The actual company themselves post on there really regularly, answering questions and offering support. And I found that to be very valuable and helpful to be in that group. One other thing that I wish I had known before I ordered it, and this is just kind of two helpful things to know if you're interested in buying this program, is one, it never goes on sale. So you just kind of buy it when you buy it. You can find things used, and again, you can buy all of these components separately online, so that can help you save some money if it's a budget issue. But one thing I wish I had known is when you order it, you can get box art, and so it's actually really cool. In the description, you can put what your kid loves, and when the box comes to your house, it'll have like the art all over it. So you can put like, my kid loves dinosaurs or Mario or unicorns or whatever, and they'll decorate the box that way, which is just kind of an extra little fun thing. So overall, again, we finished a full year of this program now, and we really love it. My son has had huge growth. I can't recommend it enough. We are really, really, enjoying it. We're going to continue with it. I do think it's working. However, that does not mean that it's a perfect program. So let's go ahead and go into some of the things I don't love about this program. So one thing I don't love about this program is it is expensive. I do think when you kind of factor in how many components you get, the quality of materials, the ability to reuse most of those materials with multiple students, and the fact that it's only those, levels and then you're done, forever, it's probably not that expensive in the grand scheme of things. But comparing to other reading curriculums, it does feel a bit pricey. So if you're on a super extreme budget, this might be a hard one to get. However, for me, I was willing to spend a little bit more on reading because I feel like learning to read is, the foundation of all learning. So to me, if the program was really that great, I was willing to spend the extra money on it. But I do think, the cost is a con. The other thing, again, this program does require some prep. It's not a lot of prep. Again, it took me 10-15 minutes on the weekend, but it is some prep. So it's not fully open and go, but if you do the prep on the weekend, then it's open and go during the week. And I'll talk a little bit more about how I prep this in a bit, but just something to know. It's also not a full language arts curriculum. So again, it doesn't include writing. It doesn't include, grammar other than just like the grammar you need to know to read. It doesn't include, it includes some comprehension, but not like full literature program, any of that. So you will have to add in, spelling and some other components to this program eventually, depending on the age of your student, or, some people choose to add it in after they finish the program. But that's just something to know that it's not going to cover everything language arts. It's just focused on learning to read, which again, we liked that was separate because again, I didn't want to be held back because of our writing or our spelling or whatever. I wanted to be able to learn to read regardless of those things. But that is something to consider. Also, as a first time parent using this and teaching my kid to read, I did feel that some of the lessons were very long. Now, obviously, as I mentioned before, you're not finishing a lesson in a day, and it's perfectly fine to take multiple days or a week or whatever to finish a lesson. But even so, I felt that there were some components in this program that were just really long for that one component. Like for example, some of the fluency sheets. Let me see if I can find a good example here. Some of the fluency sheets were extremely long. I mean, this one's a good example. Look at all these words on this page. That's a lot for a beginner reader to be reading. And yes, I can find ways to make it fun and make it a game and split it up, but it still felt like a lot. So that is one thing. I do feel like I had to modify things a little bit. I had to do some research and find some different ways to make it work for us, because there were a few components that I did feel were maybe not quite age appropriate for a young reader. Now, we did use this in kindergarten. My son was only 5. So maybe if you were using this with a slightly older child, it wouldn't be as big of a deal. But I did feel that some of the activities and even some of the stories were a bit long for a beginner reader. That was just my opinion. That might have been more of an error on us. I definitely got better as the program went on. And I'll talk about in my tips kind of the ways that I approached this. But that was a con for me. I do feel like there was some adjustment and modification that I had to do as the parent. And I wish the program had split some of this stuff up already and I wouldn't have to do that extra work. And that's pretty much all of my cons for the program. Again, I really love this program. Overall, I think it was great. The only thing I really wish that they had is I actually wish that they sold more readers with this program, because their readers are so awesome, guys. It's gotta be hands down my favorite part of the program is their readers. And I love them, and I wish that we had more. I just wish I had some extras to hand my son for fun reading or for summer reading. I just wish they had more that I could purchase just as extra. Maybe one day they will, but for now they don't. But I do wish that this company would come out with just some more readers. All right, so let's go into my tips, kind of how we modified this program for ourselves, some of the supplementary materials that we use, some tips and tricks and things that made this program work for us better. So again, it's a good program on its own, but there were some things I learned along the way that made things easier and better for us. One big thing was the magnetic tiles. So those ones that you're using to kind of build words and do some activities within the lesson. My son struggles with focus, and he really had a hard time with those. If I put the letter tiles in front of him, he would just want to play with them. He had a hard time just focusing on reading the words. He just wanted to mess around with them. So then we tried the app, which was a little better, but he was also distracted by the app. He wanted to click on things and push buttons, and then he was excited because there was a screen in front of him, and it didn't quite work for us. And I can't even take credit for this tip because I got this off of that Facebook group I told you about, but somebody mentioned that their kid was the same way, and they used a whiteboard with a red and blue marker. And I cannot recommend that enough. We just had this literally plain cheapo whiteboard that I already had on hand, and I just got a red and blue expo marker, and I just used that to write our words and do our word activities on here, and that worked perfect. There was nothing to distract him. We were able to get the lesson done quickly and easily. That was just game changing for us. So if you have a kid that's very easily distractible, that you think the letter tiles or the app might be distracting for you, or maybe you just don't want to purchase those materials, this is a great budget friendly, easy way to do that part of the lesson. Highly recommend. Another thing I mentioned before is that I wish that there was more readers with this program. And obviously you can just reread the same stories, and I do actually recommend doing that. But my son wanted to read more, and I wanted him to have more practice, and practice with maybe some shorter, easier stories to help build up confidence and love for reading. So we started looking for some extra readers. I purchased quite a few actually, but I'm going to mention my 2 favorites here. So the 2 we liked the most were these fun tales. This is actually sold by the company Sunlight. Now, Sunlight is a religious company. However, there is no religious content in this at all. Just FYI, if you're a secular family, this will be perfect for you. And so they're just little readers. I'll kind of just show you one. So they're just little simple readers. They are colorful, and they do tell real stories. So it's not just the cat on the mat, it's a real story. So he enjoyed these. They're all, and these, I will say all of this is super phonics based, so they're not going to see any sight words or anything like that in here that they wouldn't know. They'll be able to decode all of it. So they work great with All About Reading. The only downside I can say with these is if you're using it at the very beginning of level 1, your student might struggle a little bit just because they do have some plural words in here. So words that end in S, like digs. And so my son had trouble blending the S at the end early on because he hadn't quite gotten to ending blends yet, and he just hadn't learned that skill quite yet and was still working on it. So that might be something that your student struggles with at the beginning, but it definitely like midway toward the end of level 1, these are perfect. Another one that I got for my son was these nonfiction phonics readers. My son loves nonfiction books. He loves books with real pictures about real things. So I knew these would be a hit for him. These, just like the other ones, are completely decodable. They're all phonics based. There's no sight words. So any child doing the All About Reading level 1 will be able to read them. There were some words that had like CK and stuff at the end. So if you haven't reached the lessons with that in level 1 yet, they might struggle a little bit. So again, might be better for second half of level 1, but overall my son did great with these. If your child is not a nonfiction lover, this same brand and company has a fiction version of these called Laugh-A-Lot Phonics that are just little funny stories. Very similar though, also decodable and phonics based. So those are great supplementary readers if you're looking for additional readers to add to this program. Kind of along that same vein, if you have a child who loves worksheets and wants to have some writing with their reading program, my son was not this way, so this was kind of a miss for us. We didn't actually use this, but I know a lot of people love the Explode the Code books and use it alongside All About Reading. So this is just a little phonics based workbook. There's some writing in here and some little different activities. So if your child is a kid who really wants to have a worksheet, or maybe you as a parent want to have a physical worksheet to go with this program, you can use Explode the Code as a supplement material. Again, for my kid, he doesn't love worksheets, he doesn't love writing, so he didn't love this, so we used a few pages and then didn't use the rest. However, one thing that was a big hit to kind of supplement was games. So by far the game that we loved the most with this program was this Super Words. This is by the brand Melby Toys. And basically what this is it's CVC word practice game. So it comes with all these little word cards, and then you have a little board in front of you. And the board is split up by like ending sounds, so you'll focus on a specific sound. And basically the student will draw the tile, read the word, and if it's one of the words that go with the pictures on their board, they'll put it on the board. First person to finish wins. So I play it with him, and that's what we play. They are double-sided as well. There's lots of different words in here, so lots of replayability. We would do this, a few times a week and loved it. This same company has other games as well, this Melby Toys company. They have one that's just the same as that one, but it's called Super Blends. So it's got, instead of just CVC words, it's also got like the words with beginning and ending blends. And then they also have another game called Word Seeds, which we're planning to get soon, that basically plays like Candyland. So it's got like a Candyland type board, and you draw the card, and instead of just having colors on it, it also has words that they have to read, and they've got different piles. So they've got, I think it's CVC words, blend words, and long vowel words. So you can pick wherever your child is at and use that stack, and they can practice with the game, going up the game board. So all of those are great options if you want like a fun board game to kind of supplement this program. And then that's really all what we use to supplement. Again, we use the All About Reading website a lot. We printed off a lot of activities for that, which kind of goes into my prep. So let me show you real quick, if I can find what I'm looking for, how I prepped this. And this is something that I feel like is different from how some other people on YouTube do this program. So a lot of people on YouTube I've seen, when they get this All About Reading in the mail, they spend like days and hours, taking the whole thing apart, cutting it and prepping it and putting it in like laminated sheets and binders and like all this stuff, which was super overwhelming to me. I personally don't want to spend days and days prepping at the beginning of the school year. I would much rather do just small chunks a week. So like I said, like that 10-15 minutes on the weekend. So the way that I did it was I would get the teacher's manual. I would look what lessons we're doing for the week. On average, we school 4 days a week, and I would say on average, we did 2 All About Reading lessons per week. So basically each lesson took us 2 days for the most part. Occasionally there would be some really long lessons that we would spend the whole week on that one lesson, but generally we did 2 lessons per week. So I would look at it, look what was needed for those 2 lessons, and I would go ahead and get them ready. Now, the word cards really didn't need much prep. I could just pull those out as soon as we were doing the lesson because they're already in number order when you get them. So this really didn't require any prep at all. Same thing with the readers. Obviously the stories are just in there. I just kept a bookmark where we were and didn't require any prep. So really the only thing that required prep was the activity book. So it would tell you what pages you needed out of this activity book. It is perforated, So you can rip them out. So I just would rip out the pages we needed. Some of them would require a little bit of cutting if you were preparing like a flip book or something like that. So if it needed any cutting, I would do that ahead of time. If you have a kid that loves to cut, you might let them do it as part of the lesson. But for us, I really just wanted us to be focusing on the reading lesson and not so much the cutting and pasting situation. So what I would do is I have this spiral notebook that I bought, and I kind of use this as like our interactive reading notebook. It's just something I did on my own. It's not, it doesn't say to do this in the program. I just did it on my own. So I got a spiral notebook. I actually copied and glued the student activity book cover and just glued it on here to make it, look like it goes with the program. And this notebook has like a little pocket in here, like a little folder. And this is where I would put the stuff that we needed for our lessons for the week. So anything I had cut out, fluency sheets, anything like that we needed for the week, I would put in this pocket here. It's also where you can see I kept our sticker chart. So I put all the stuff we needed for the lesson in here. And I use these little paper clips to kind of keep stuff that needed to go together if it was cut out or whatever. And that way when we got to the lesson, it was open and go. I just opened it. I said what the teacher's manual said to say. I took out the sheets that said to take out, and we were good to go. There was no prep involved, 20 minutes a day, easy. And then on the flip side is where I kept all of our game materials. So you can see that there's two sides of this, one side for like our lesson materials and one side for games. So we reuse pretty much the same games throughout the program. There are a ton of games, like unlimited amount of games, both on the website and in the teacher's manual. So let me show you that real quick. So in the teacher's manual in the back, there is just this huge list of games and activity ideas that you can do with your child to go with this program. So there's stuff for all kinds of kids, artsy kids, kids who love cars, kids who love games. I mean, there's just multiple pages of games and activity ideas. There's also other activities too, like there's comprehension activities back here. There's, what to do if your kid's struggling with the stories, what to do if your kid's struggling with, the fluency sheets. There's just so much stuff in this teacher guide, guys. I cannot recommend it enough. So anyway, I went through that manual. I pulled out the games that I felt like my son would most connect with. It took a little bit of trial and error, but eventually we kind of found the games that worked best for us, and we just reused those same ones. So for us, the ones we used the most were bingo. So I actually printed these bingo cards off from the All About Reading website, and we just use our little like math counters on it. So we would, pull a word card, read it, and then play bingo. The first person to finish the bingo card, get blackout bingo, wins. So that's one thing we did. You can also do this with those really long fluency sheets I talked about. You could, cut out like a third of the sheet or whatever and use it for the bingo game. We also loved Feed the Monster. This is a little monster. This comes in the teacher manual. You can cut them out, or you can also print them off for free online. He's got a little slit in here, and you just feed the monster the words after you read them. I gave him like a little voice and a backstory, and he would, talk about the words he was eating and stuff. So it made it a little bit fun. But he enjoyed that. My son is also very into vehicles, so they have this activity on the website. It was like build a road, and so he got a little Hot Wheel. He would read the word, and then he would get a road piece to build for his race car to race on. So we did that one. And again, these can be used in so many different ways. You can use them with the fluency sheets, you can use them with the word cards, lots of ways you can use these. And then the last one we did, I printed this board game off again from the website for free. It's just this little board game, and we would, same thing, we would roll a little dice, go along the path, and do whatever we were practicing on with those. So that's kind of how I made some of those different components more fun. In the teacher's manual, it'll also have some suggested games as well. So you can use the suggested ones or the ones you picked out or whatever, it doesn't really matter, but that's just what makes the game more fun. And then for the rest of the notebook, this is just where we put all of our activities. So all the activities that we did for the year, from the activity book, we glued in here, which is kind of like a fun little keepsake. My son can look back and see what he's done. He can practice with them again. It's also, if you live in a state where you need to keep up with what you're doing, it's like a nice little way to keep track of it. And this just, again, was low prep for me, guys. Like I just, we had all the stuff, we glued it and did the activity, and then we were done. So this worked really well for me as a working homeschool parent. It didn't take a ton of time, and it was really a good program. And honestly, the testament to it really is just the growth that my son has made this year. Going from not reading at all to being able to read books independently is just huge growth. and we haven't even fully finished level 1 yet. So it definitely works. Don't be afraid to, slow it down when your student needs to. I think that's one thing that nobody ever talks about. Like, you have this great program, but what do you do if your kid's struggling with it? Or what do you do if your kid isn't progressing? And we did run into that a little bit. Like, I'm gonna be honest here. Like, we struggled a little bit with fluency. Like the stories were getting longer, the fluency sheets were getting longer, and my son was still sounding out pretty much all of the words. Now, he was sounding them out correctly, but he wasn't reading them fluently. And when you're sitting there sounding out every single word, like, your stories are gonna take a long time. And I wasn't really sure what to do at first. But again, the back of the book had suggestions, the blog had suggestions, the Facebook group had suggestions. And what I basically ended up doing for us was we would take a few weeks and we would reread some of the same stories we read, and we would play all those games I talked about with the word cards, and we would do the fluency sheets some more. One mistake that I made at the beginning of this program, which is kind of like my last little tip I'll leave you with here, is be cautious about modifying the curriculum. Like, be very cautious about taking any part out of it. At the beginning, when I very first started, I kind of started modifying it, thinking it wasn't going to be a big deal. Like I told you, we had issues with the word building and the tiles. And I was like, you know what? My son's able to blend and sound out anyway. He doesn't really need that. And so we just took that part out for a little while. And then the fluency sheets were getting really long. And I was like, you know what? We'll just do half the words on this page, or, every other word or whatever. And I modified it to what I felt like was best for him. But unknowingly, I didn't realize how important each of those components was. And I paid for it later on. I saw my son struggling with fluency. I saw him struggling with some of those skills that I didn't even realize those activities were working on until it was too late. So one of the big things I changed was the fluency sheets. Like I said, I would try to use like only some of the words, or one of the biggest mistake I made, definitely by far, is on the fluency sheets. Let me just show you. Here we go. They have these sentences, and it repeats, like the phrase, like it'll say, I think the dog. I think the dog drank. I think the dog drank the pop. And so it repeats it over and over again. And in my naive self, I thought it would be fine if my son just read the last sentence, because I thought he'll get all the practice with the words and he doesn't have to do all that extra repetition because the sheet is so long. But what I did not realize is that the whole point of this is to practice that fluency. And by repeating that same phrase, my son is learning to read fluently. And so we were skipping a little bit of this at the beginning, and we kind of had to backtrack a little bit because of that. So don't do that. Be careful about modifying and skipping things, because there might be a purpose behind it that you don't realize. And so now I'm very adamant we do all of it, even if it's long. I just find ways to make it fun. We play bingo, we do the cars, whatever. We split it over a whole week if we need to. I add things, change things. But we make sure to do all the components, because I realize now that each component has a purpose. And again, with the magnet tiles, I found the whiteboard, thing to do, and use that instead. So we found ways to make it work for us. So find ways to make it work for you, but be careful about removing any components. I hope this video was helpful, guys. I know it was super long, but I just felt like I had a lot to share about this program that I hadn't seen shared other places. So I do hope it was helpful. Definitely like and subscribe. Check out my other videos. I have some other videos of homeschooling on my channel and plan to make some more. And I hope you guys have a great day.